Located at Prince George's Community College, and we are in Largo, Maryland, maybe about 15 or 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And just really excited to be able to present to you guys today our process for developing a college-wide OER implementation. So in terms of the presenters for this, my name is Michael Smith again. I'm the interim AVP for Partnerships and Economic Development, and the person that I work closely with, and you guys may have heard from her on Monday, I believe, was Deborah Bowles, our interim director of Teaching and Learning. So we've spent a lot of time on working on this together. So today we're going to talk really about our approach in developing an OER and college-wide implementation of an OER. And this presentation is going to focus on two things. It's going to focus on our approach as well as the results that we received. One of the things we kind of like people to present or share with us, and maybe you could put it in the chat if you're able to, is just to comment as to whether or not your institution has a college-wide implementation for OERs, or is it more done kind of like, you know, class by class or department by department. So if you are able to put in the chat, and you could do something as simple as yes or no, or maybe, but do you have a college-wide implementation? Is there any strategy on how you can scale open educational resources beyond just a particular class or department and be able to do this across the college? And I'm checking the chat as well.
Michael, I think we're just seeing your first slide without the presentation, like you're just in regular PowerPoint.
Oh,
without
okay.
presenting. I don't know if
let me go ahead and stop and start back up again and see if that helps.
Yep, that's better.
Okay. And do you see the previous one now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to pop over just for the chat for a minute. And I see no, more than one, but working on bigger drives, which is great. Let's see what else we see in here. Ad hoc as well, not yet. We're trying, but remember our motto, if it doesn't make sense, we don't do it. We have a task force, but one by one mostly. Okay, fairly person by person. Okay, great. So, you know, we found that when we started learning more about OERs and wanting to, you know, develop this, that, you know, most of the presentations that we went to across the country and just learning about this, that it focused really on, you know, how to do this and why it was important to, you know, the students and to the faculty and the traditional benefits. But we didn't find a lot of information on, you know, how to scale or grow OERs throughout an institution. Well, the way that this came about was a charge from our provost. And maybe 3 years ago or so, our provost said that, you know, we don't just want OERs on our campus. We want to be able to scale the adoption of OERs or free educational resources. And that was a pretty big charge, you know, for us. And it was a little nerve-wracking for him to ask that, right? Because as a faculty member, you know, administration is always initiating that one more thing, that one more project. And then immediately when faculty members hear this charge from administration, they're thinking like, what is the new shiny object in the room again? What is it that they're asking us to do again, right? So when the provost came to me and another coworker and said, we'd really like for you to, you know, work on OERs across the institution, one of the first things that we said, and it's been really important for us, is that this initiative would need to be led by the faculty and supported by the administration. Because, you know, having it not led by the faculty would give the impression possibly that, the faculty was carrying water for administration, or the administration, found some select puppets to carry their message. So one of the key things we wanted to do is make sure that the provost understood that this was going to be faculty led and we were going to need support for administration. And that philosophy has kind of carried us through. So who were some of our stakeholders? Well, students were very important stakeholders for us. Students, we attended SGA meetings. We went to student forums because we knew that if we had the student voice, that would allow the faculty to be able to hear us better, as well as the administration. In terms of student participation, we eventually created an OER steering committee. And at one point in time, one of the students was the co-chair of that committee. So having that student voice was really important for us. Another voice that was, or another stakeholder that was important for us was enterprise technology. We needed to make sure that when we got students attempted to use our registration system, that we had the ability to identify courses that were zero cost courses. So for them to be able to be identified and searchable by that criterion was actually important as well. Making sure that we had marketing and communications on board so we could have signage throughout the campus, that we could have information going out to the college community in newsletters through social media. The library was an important resource for us in terms of making sure that we adhered to proper licensing. We included our advisors because a lot of the advisors were the first steps in registering students. So by making sure that the advisors were aware of these, when students came to them about help in registering for classes, they could redirect them to these OER and Z courses. Professional development was key too, in making sure that we could create a message and give opportunities for faculty to learn. And the research area, we needed to make sure that we were going to be able to demonstrate impact. So on the front end, we wanted to make sure that the research office was aware that we were going to ask them to compare the number of sections, the numbers or dollars that have been saved, as well as the course success on our Z or OER courses versus our traditional courses. So it was real important for us to have a steering committee that consisted of the following stakeholders. And all of these stakeholders have really important roles in terms of us being able to implement and scale OERs across the institution. So our model really composed of four things. The first thing was being able to create some type of awareness about the importance of OERs throughout the college community. The second was giving people the ability to get trained on how to use a platform like the LibreTexts platform. The third one is making sure that there was support available for them. And the last one was creating a repository of resources that could be used as well. So in terms of awareness, we created meetings and opportunities for the faculty. We created learning community meetings. We created information sessions. We put all the faculty together and stakeholders in one room, and we gave them an opportunity to ask questions about OERs, ask questions about the implications of OERs, to say what their concerns were, to say, things that they thought might be helpful, but more importantly, to be able to document their concerns and be able to respond back to them at some point. If I can, I'd like to just share a quick video that shows one of our OER learning community workshops. Are you guys able to see my screen okay?
Yep, we see it.
Okay. And can you tell me what's the current slide you see?
The one with the open educational resources
Okay,
screenshot. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Let's see if I can get back to that one. Did it advance as well? No, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're at the OER showcase now.
And you see the awareness one with the pictures?
Yep.
Okay, great. So being able to have forums for stakeholders, specifically faculty, to be able to express their interest, their excitement, but also their concerns was important. And one of the things we did during these workshops was not to try to answer all of their questions, because in the very beginning, we had a groundswell of faculty members that were not supportive of open educational resources. So what we wanted to do was create the space to give people to document their concerns and to express what they were. And we took, notes on those, and then we responded back to them as well as the entire college community about addressing some of their concerns in their notes. In addition, we had OER showcases where we had faculty members that created OERs, and we invited students along as well as administration for them to actually be able to see some of the OERs, to be able to engage with the faculty members and be able to engage with the students that were actually in these classes. So it allowed faculty members to get this point of view or perspective, from their peers and not just from someone saying, this is a great thing to do. So in terms of using these tools for awareness was helpful. We also used the college's marketing communications department by utilizing digital signage, the school newspaper, the president's message. We had recognition ceremonies. We used our college professional development day, but we tried to infuse this throughout the college's messaging system so the faculty and stakeholders could actually see this information quite frequently. The other component was the training component. Once we created a sense of awareness, we wanted to make sure that we had plenty of opportunities for faculty to get trained. So we had the library team go in and get certified on their Creative Commons license, and as well as OER librarian certification. And what we did as faculty, we attended LibreTexts training. We took advantage of a lot of the office hours, and as a result of that, once we got the training from the LibreTexts, we were able to provide individual and small group workshops for our faculty members as well. Some of the training topics that we focused on were designing course maps, adoption versus adaption and creation. We talked about interactive components, as well as understanding licenses. In terms of support, well, there was a lot asked of our stakeholders. And initially, all of them were not really very supportive of this process. So up to now, I've been presenting to you this ideal of where everything seems like that everyone's been on board and it's been great. But that wasn't our experience. Our faculty members noted that they didn't think in the beginning that OERs were credible. They didn't think that they were peer evaluated. They're not going to transfer to other institutions. This is the next shiny object of administration. We could actually be doing harm to our students, right? So one of the biggest barriers that we needed to deal with was address the concerns of our faculty. And the approach that we used in terms of dealing with the concerns of the faculty, it went way beyond something being free. A big part of our faculty getting on board was understanding how OERs can create equity. And one of the most important things that most faculty members could relate to was that day one experience of students. Each of us in our classes have recognized that we have students on day one that, for whatever reason, if they're not able to afford to have that textbook on day one, then they're going to get behind and they're not going to be able to access the resources, no matter how great of a student they are. That same student that's going to the library trying to see if there's a copy of Reserve or see if they can photocopy some pages just to get caught up. Well, with OERs, we recognize that students are going to be able to be available and have access to that information on day one, and how that makes a difference in equity for students. So now you've created a system in place, whether a student can afford the textbook or not afford a textbook, on day one, they're going to have access to that material. And as faculty members, we recognize how important that is in terms of student success. Another motivating point for faculty was the ability to promote inclusion. In so many textbooks, a lot of times in some of the STEM areas as well, that there's not representation of diverse groups in those. So with the OERs, for our faculty members to know that they could have greater representation of people of color, or greater representation of women or people with disabilities or different sexual orientation, they thought that that was really, really powerful. The thinking or the belief is that students are able to do better when they can actually see themselves in the book or the material. So that was really important as well. And beyond that, it's just not about representation, but it's the quality of the representation. If you see, African Americans typically in textbooks as entertainers and athletes, how helpful is that in terms of creating that type of image? Next one that I'd like to talk about is improved pedagogy, and faculty really got excited about this. In the LibreTexts platform, there is the remixer tool, and that was a huge sell for our faculty member. And what that means is that they could actually pull information from different aspects or different libraries to create that custom textbook. There's so many faculty members that want a chapter from this piece. They want another point from this piece. This is written a certain way, but they really want to change it differently. So they're ended up working with publishers trying to get 2 and 3 books put together, and still the words are not put in the same way that they want to. So with the LibreTexts platform, faculty members are able to create their own customized textbook, and where necessary, add language, add content themselves, and have it delivered the way that they want to. So in terms of encouraging faculty to get on board with this, it wasn't enough to just talk about free, but for our faculty, the equity piece was important, the inclusion piece was important, and the improved pedagogy piece was important, as well as echoing that we had a student voice to make sure that they understood the importance of it. In terms of our research office, again, this was not something that everyone was completely in support of in the beginning. One of the things we charged them with was, creating an assessment plan, calculating the annual savings, identify student retention and completion of Z courses. When we went to them in the very beginning, they said, that's fine and everything, but we don't really have the time and resources to do that, So we got a lot of pushback in the very beginning from our stakeholders. From enterprise technology, we told them, hey, we need to have these courses searchable by Z classes. And we also need to make sure that there's some type of identifier, so when students are registering, that's available. Yeah, we think that's a great idea and everything, but we don't really have the time and resources to do that right now. So I won't go through each of these, but in doing this, we received a lot of pushback from all of the different areas on the campus. And it was a matter of going back to administration. And this is where the administrative support came in, to be able to go back to the provost and say, we are stuck because enterprise technology has not made this a strategic priority, or communications has not made this a strategic priority. In terms of course success, this is some of the information that we got back from our research office, comparing our Z sections to non-Z sections. And then it became harder for faculty members to say that this was doing harm or that it wasn't effective. In terms of communications, we asked them to create a brand, which they did. Ours is PGCC Go Open. And we asked them to do the banners and the signage. In the beginning, they were not really open to that, but eventually they did become more to that. Enterprise technology, we had a big challenge. We did not know what platform we wanted to, go with in terms of developing our OER. We were stuck. We thought in the very beginning, are we going to have to do this with web pages? Are we going to have to put this in a learning management system? Are we going to have to use SharePoint? And luckily, when we got connected to LibreTexts, we realized that they had thought about all of these things we were struggling with already. So we didn't have to figure out how are these things are going to be stored? How are we going to get access to good quality information? How are we going to get support? How are they going to be around for a long time? So that was a real important factor in our success in being able to work with our administrative partners as well as the faculty to be able to scale this. And this is a screenshot of showing you now students can actually search by zero-cost textbooks at our institution. In terms of our research team, we asked them to give us information, on a set schedule. So we want to know course success data. We have an OER dashboard that shows the amount of money saved. When do you do social media blasts? When are you putting out banners? When's the portal page going to be updated? When's the next time we're going to have a showcase? So this is something that we constantly wanted to keep in the college community eye, not just so much the faculty and staff, but also the students as well. Something that we did that was very, very powerful, but a little bit subtle, was to provide these updates to the entire college community. And one of the things we did was talk about the relationship between OERs and general education. So we have general education courses like other institutions, and we put up a chart that showed for all the different categories of general education, which courses do we have that are OERs there? So this began to show the college and administration that this is the basis for us working towards a Z degree. And this is absolutely necessary. And we can have high impact courses be able to make an impact across the curriculum. Something else we did is list by department and by division, the number of OER courses and sections we had in each department. So this was done as an information item, but as you know, chairs, deans, provost, everyone compares and they want to see where they are on the list. So by providing this information in a non-threatening way, but showing a comparison for all the departments in the division, this type of chart was able to subtly encourage people to work on their progress and also allow the provost to connect with certain departments individually that weren't moving along kind of quickly. Some of the resources that we use to support this process as well as faculty was a quality assurance process, making sure that faculty members knew what to do step by step in terms of developing their OER. One of the things that we thought was important was to have multiple reviews. So we had a department review, and then we had a final review that included information about accessibility and standards of good teaching. Then there was compensation in the end as well. So these are all the steps that faculty members had to go through with quality assurance points to make sure that it was going to adhere to our standards. We also had a portal page that was for internal faculty members and staff, excuse me. It had a resource guide, a checklist, getting started. All this information was open. I believe most of it came from LibreTexts as well, but it gave them samples of everything that was expected. And here's a sample of our checklist. We also had an assessment form or a course map form. So they had to think about all the objectives and do the mapping first. For their evaluation, they would have to make sure that there were certain things done in terms of licensing, the quality of the subject matter, as well as alignment to the learning objectives, a rubric associated with that. And also there was a Padlet made available, so not just people within the college could be able to access the resources, but they could be available to anyone and everyone. This is one of the banners that our marketing communications would put forth. that would also be helpful in terms of showing impact. I know that the schedule is kind of tight, but I think I left about 5 minutes for questions. So I would love to be able to tackle some questions, and my email is on this slide here as well. So if there are any questions or anyone wants to get in touch, if you don't have my email, it's available. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. But one of the reasons why that we wanted to do this was we wanted to really focus on being able to deliver this to scale, because we wanted to be able to make a larger impact and footprint. And one of the most important things for us in the success of this has been our association and partnership with LibreTexts. The amount of resources that are available from LibreTexts, the amount of support that we have, the innovation that takes place cannot be understated compared to other ones that we've evaluated in the beginning. And one other thing that I mentioned is that, you know, LibreTexts' commitment to diversity is really exciting for us, because it's going to allow us to take this on the road and be able to share it with some of the HBCUs, or historically Black colleges and universities, as well as predominantly minority institutions. And I do see some questions in here, so see if I got a few minutes here. Do that. Can you post a link to your resources in the chat? I will do that. I will find the link to that Padlet and I will post it. Wonderful OER strategic campus plan. Thanks for sharing. How do you train stakeholders on LibreTexts? So we spent most of our time training the faculty members and the librarians on LibreTexts. So the librarians, because they were going to be a big support arm for us, as well as faculty members, because faculty members could learn how to use the technology and be able to incorporate it. And then they could also be trainers and stuff for other faculty members as well. Well, you guys, I am so glad that I had the opportunity to share with you our work with LibreTexts and scaling OERs. The last thing I just want to mention is that, you know, with systems like ADAPT, LibreTexts is really just so far ahead of the curve when it comes to thinking about things that are necessary for scaling. We've worked with a lot of other groups in the very beginning, and they just don't, in my opinion, have the comprehensive resources and infrastructure to do what's necessary to scale on an industry-wide level or a campus-wide level. Oh, thank you, Deborah. And Deborah, can you add the Padlet link if you're still there? Deborah, you are the best. Oh, she already did. You know, Deborah is just the legs and the arms behind everything. So, you know, when it comes to all the work that we've done here, she is just a phenomenal resource and the brains behind all of this stuff. Thank you, Amber, for giving us the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing.